Oh, streaming live on Facebook. That's what it says. Hello.
OAC.
Hi, OAC. I think we're live. I hope that we're live. You know, the truth is we don't really know what we're doing. We're just making it up as we go along. So hopefully we're live and we'll get started. Shall we, Angela?
Sounds good to
Yeah.
me.
Thumbs up, gang. I have not allowed them to speak until they are called on. The thing about our board of directors is that we have a lot of very smart people on the OAC board, and they constantly interrupt one another. So they're under strict guidelines to behave themselves, especially you, Tony. Wait until I call on you. Hey, well, OAC, what a day we've had. My name is Karen Boyte, and I am a member of the Ontario Autism Coalition and part of our board of directors. Today, we are hosting an emergency Facebook Live to check in with our community. These lives are an attempt, just an attempt, to expand the discussions on our page in a longer format. Facebook has been abuzz today about today's announcement from the province. With me is our new prez, Angela Brandt. You know, last week we hosted a quiz, a test to test Angela's knowledge on the OAP. And she pointed out to us at that time that this is the year we're going to need someone who understands numbers. Well, Angela, once again, you've been proven right. So sorry to make you hit the ground running. Let's get into it, Angela, shall we?
Sounds good. You know, 1 week into the role, this is how it starts. Woohoo!
This is how it is. That's how we roll. I have several questions from the community, and we'll work through them. Those of you who are watching live, please chime in. Note that a number of our Ontario Autism Program experts are watching too. If you see admin beside their name, you'll know that those comments will be coming from an experienced advocate. So we got a lot of smart people in the OAC, including Scott Corbett. Say hi, Scott, wave. Thank you. And our beautiful Alina.
Queen of the North.
Queen of the North, Carrie Monahan, and Tony. All right, we'll get to know them through the conversation. Angela, first question is from Emily.
And let me just preface by saying that it's been a crazy day. I have not had a chance to read these questions in advance. So there may be times where I will be saying that we just don't know yet.
Mm-hmm. Maybe back up even more, Angela. Angela, what the heck happened today?
Oh my goodness. Well, we had an idea that Minister Smith was going to make an announcement. We had no idea it was going to be this soon. So he made his announcement this morning at 10 a.m. There was a story in the Star before that. And basically he announced that they're going to be running a pilot program for 600 children into core services. And core services include ABA, speech, OT, and mental health services. He also announced that there will be 3 categories of need. I think I have it written down. They are intensive, moderate, and limited. And he also talked about a yearly amount based on age, and it's a variable amount. And I imagine that the lower amount would be for somebody in the limited needs category, and the higher amount would be for a child in the extensive category. Talked about a little bit about the role of care coordinators, referred to them as tour guides, which was a little bit baffling. But I think overall, it left the community with a lot more questions, and that's why we decided to host this live today.
Scott, do you have anything to add to that synopsis of what happened today?
Scott, you have to unmute yourself.
No, that's our habit
Scott,
today.
is a political scientist by training, and he is the gentleman responsible for writing many of the articles that have informed our community for many years now.
Yeah, no, I think the big thing that I took away was the confirmation. The last few weeks, a lot of speculation. Will care coordinators be the ones that are determining the funding allotments that all of our children would be getting, or would clinicians be actually prescribing a certain amount of service? So they've confirmed now that the clinicians will have no say in this whatsoever. The needs-based standardized tool, they're calling it, will be the tool which will determine your funding allotment and intensity of need. And then really it's the clinicians that need to work within that funding allotment. So that was a huge thing. I think, for many people, when they say needs-based therapy, inherently means that a clinician will determine what the right amount of what therapies and the right intensity of those therapies, and that's not what's happening.
And that it's individualized.
Correct.
Thanks, guys. First question from Emily. I'd love to hear them explain, I think she means the provincial government, how anyone could consider this needs-based. I'd also like them to stop saying 600 children off the wait list and actually say less than 1.3% of children currently on the wait list will be allowed into this new and extremely flawed system beginning in March. 600 sounds like a big number until you hear that there are over 45,000 children on the list. Carrie? Whoa. Over to you, Carrie. Carrie Monahan from Ottawa.
Oh, hi.
Hi, Carrie.
Where's our question in there, Karen? What are we looking for? We want them, well, okay, here's the thing, right? We're talking about 600 kids, right, that are going to come off of the wait list. And no, it's not a big number of kids whatsoever at all. This is, what this is a pilot program. That they are launching with the matrix that the implementation working group has designed. They're going to test it essentially on these kids. So they haven't fine-tuned this program yet. They need to test it. So I hate to call a group of kids, guinea pigs, but these are the ones that are going in first. They're going to see, how this works, how, they want to know if it does work. And that's concerning. So, I mean, this isn't the launch of services. This is them trying it out. The thing that we need to recognize is when the government talks about 8,000 kids moving into the program in the first year, the year is not starting in March when these kids are brought in from whatever walk they're at right now. That year will start once they've decided it's ready to go. So yeah, it's a very, very small number initially, but this is what they're doing. This is a pilot program to start off with.
And sadly, Carrie, we also learned that it's not 600 children exclusively off the wait list. They will be looking to move kids, that we call legacy kids, as part of this 600 as well. And you're absolutely correct that they're using this 600 as a pilot. And in a pilot, it means that they're using it to refine and evaluate the program. However, if you are a legacy family, you can choose to opt out. You can choose to not consent.
Do we have a sense of what the percentage of new kids versus legacy kids will be on this list of 600 children?
No, we don't have any idea. And we don't even have any idea how they are selecting the 600 children. We do know from the announcement that they're looking for a representative cross-section, which would make sense if you're looking for a representative sample in order to evaluate a program. So we know that they want to do that, but we don't know exactly how they're going to do that.
Spoken like a true statistician, which is Angela's training and background. Tony, you've been around for a while. Your beard is getting longer and longer and longer.
Yes.
I have a question for you from Jennifer, from Jen. I'd really like to know how the wait list has worked. Why are some children waiting almost 6 years now? My son is 14 years old, while others were added to the list after him. Uh, he is still waiting. So I think she means other people have gotten service before him, even though he's been waiting for a long time. At this point, I feel defeated and have zero faith in this government. So Tony, talk about wait lists and how they work.
If I could explain how the wait list was operated for the last how many years, then, you know, I'd be a genius. But I do know that we can't give up. I know you've waited a long time, but we're here, we're together, and we're forming a team, a political action team. We're building a small army, and we're going to get out there and we're going to make sure that everybody gets what they need.
Jen, we do have some experts in the OAC who know all about the wait lists and how they worked and didn't work. One of those people is Bruce McIntosh. Scott, how much have you paid attention to wait lists over the years?
Well, yeah, I mean, so wait lists previously were regionalized. That's what many people probably don't realize. Like you'd have in some regions, you know, people might be waiting as little as like 18 months to come in the service, and other ones that went on for years. There was actually migration going on within Ontario to move from one region to another to try to bump yourself up on the wait list. So now that they're centralizing it, it's a different story, but that's why there's that big discrepancy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I live in North York, so my provider was Surrey Place. Just 2 blocks north of me would have been Kinark, and the Kinark waitlist was up to 1.5 years longer than the one in Toronto. So a lot of people in Kinark would put their name on both lists if they could, if they were a divorced parent or if they had grandparents in a different region. And that's why there were potentially all these duplicates when merging the multiple wait lists from the different regionals. But Tony's saying that he would be a genius if we knew how the wait list worked in the last couple of years. That is absolutely true, because that was absolutely not transparent and not shared with us. I know there was some algorithm used. What it was, I think
Nobody knows.
maybe McLeod's staff knows. That's
I
about
don't
it.
think anybody knows.
Alina, we won't talk about wait lists for much longer, but you live way up north in a small community. Has your experience been with wait lists?
Well, personally, we got on our wait list with our daughter in 2017, and I was told at that time our provider here was CCR, Child and Community Resources. We were number 300 some on the list in the district and the city of Thunder Bay. And we were told that there were, over 300 families on that wait list, and they were pulling 4 to 5 kids off that list per year. So we've been waiting, and there's a lot of people up here that have been waiting a lot longer than we have. So, and that's
what's the longest amount of time that you're aware of for a family to be waiting in your neck of the woods, Alina?
Oh, I've heard people waiting upwards of 10 years and not receiving any kind of care at all. Some people don't even entertain a wait list because there's no way for them to physically access those services. What's the point if I have to fly in from a remote community and then drive 4 hours, stay in Thunder Bay for several days or months if it's an extended block of care, and then fly back? Those travel costs add up really quickly, and they make the cost of care up here a lot more expensive. So people just don't even try.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Angela, Laura asks, can the OAC please make sure to ask exactly how the care coordinator determines need, and if in fact the tools they use to do that will involve a computer algorithm? Ms. Statistician?
Absolutely. So I've already asked this question of the ministry bureaucrats. They did not know the answer, but I am hoping to get a response. We do know, based on today's announcement, that there are a number of functional areas that they're going to be looking at. I honestly don't know what the tool looks like, but as somebody from a researcher perspective, I do know that an evaluation tool such as this requires, and I'm going to use some stats language here, it requires established validity and reliability. And I'm asking the ministry how it was developed. Is it going to be a computer algorithm? My concern is that it actually won't. I would prefer a computer algorithm over a care coordinator filling out a questionnaire, which is much more subjective. If we at least had an objective tool, I think that would be better. But with that said, building a tool like this is a monstrous, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a monstrous thing to do. It's an undertaking. It's a monstrous undertaking. And I don't see how they could have developed it. And I don't actually see the necessity for it, since most of the clinicians have tools which are probably a lot more extensive and inclusive. So are we going to ask? Absolutely.
Mhm.
And cross our fingers that we get a response.
So just by virtue of those of us who are part of the Ontario Autism Coalition, we are already people of privilege. There are a number of people who have not plugged into our community and don't have the benefit of trading information the way that we do. And I think we all know very well families that fell by the wayside because they could not advocate for their children in their early years. They didn't have the language. They may have English, may have been they may not be native English speakers, or like it is with so many of us, determining need when you are so new to autism and understanding the needs of your child, articulating that to a care coordinator is problematic. So say the clinicians who have been advising us. Would anybody care to speak to that? Carrie?
Sure, I can talk about that.
Tell me about how it was that you first started to notice that your child was developing differently, and how you were able to articulate that to pediatricians and or therapists in order for them to determine the level of need that let's say your son has.
That's a big question, Karen. And I think maybe what the underlying thing is here is what you've just articulated, is that a lot of what I learned came from things that I learned from other parents. And one of the things that we have advocated for as the OAC is, we need parents to have guidance. And we're hoping that we would hope that the role of the care coordinator would provide some of that guidance. I think that's what the advisory panel had in mind when they suggested that there needs to be someone at the helm, or someone who will at least pick up the damn phone when you're trying to call someone to get answers. Like, families need to have that contact point. In our case, I knew nothing when my son was diagnosed. I have 2 children on the spectrum. My son Jack is about to turn 8. He's severe on the spectrum, and my daughter Charlotte is 5, and she has a milder diagnosis. They both have needs, both very different needs, but I didn't know initially, and it was a matter of just asking questions whenever I could. And one of the things, like, if I could give any piece of advice to families right now who are hoping at one point to obtain a provider or a clinician to take care of their kids, and so that they can engage in therapy, is to create those relationships now. I mean, we have such a capacity crisis right now. Even if there was enough money for every single child to get exactly what they needed in this province, there's not enough clinicians to provide it. So what's so necessary is, we know, like, there are wait lists, and we know that we're still going to have to continue to wait, but it is so, so important to start to do your homework now. Look and see who the providers are in your area. And it's not just ABA anymore. We can reach out to SLP, so speech language pathologists, occupational therapists, and mental health is going to be included in the new program as well. So you want to know who those providers are. You want to be on all of their wait lists, because there are private wait lists. And just because you're called up for service, just because you're handed that money, does not mean that you're going to be able to access therapy right away. And that's not just because of COVID. That just makes it more complicated.
That is the beginning of the journey. Scott, can you reach back into your memory and talk to me about the kind of mentorship that you received from clinicians in the early days?
Yeah, I mean, it was everything. Like, I mean, frankly, I was quite glib. I didn't realize what type of therapies or services were even there. It was core to everything. In fact, it was a psychologist at CHEO, which is the Children's Hospital here in Ontario, Ottawa, that really leveled with us and said, like, these are all the things which your child is going to need, right? So you know, get on this wait list, whether it's like the speech therapy or first words programs, all that stuff like that, and immediately getting the queue for services immediately. Like my son, who's a legacy kid right now, he was on the wait list at like 1.5 years old, because we had such great recommendations from a clinician at that point. So it's fundamental, and that's what everyone deserves to get.
Tony, how much training
And then to not also have
No, go ahead.
to wait 5 years to get into anything.
Yeah, Tony, how much training will care coordinators be receiving?
According to the call for the IIO report, it's 1 day.
1 day of training. Alina, can you tell me about any mentorship from clinicians that you've received way up north?
Well, other than our diagnostic time, which we accessed our clinician, our child psychologist very briefly, we were told to get on a wait list, and then we kind of just sat there. We only recently started accessing therapy in October with our one-time interim funding, which is going to run out very shortly here. Having the guidance from our behavioral therapist, who is in Toronto, we link up virtually, and she supervises RBTs here in Thunder Bay, research behavioral, or no, was it registered behavioral therapists? She supervises them in Thunder Bay, and having her in our life has absolutely shifted everything. And I'm so terrified of losing her. She has shown us where our daughter needs to learn how to learn, which is so important for her to access other therapies in a meaningful way. So without that learning piece, she's not going to gather information. Right. She's also told us where our daughter has strengths, which no one in the system had told us before. And that was very refreshing to hear. And we're able to build on those strengths. And I have to tell you, from October till now, our little girl has completely changed. She is better regulated. She is happier. Despite the fact that our COVID routine is absolutely chaotic, and we're homeschooling our other 2 children, and we're in care in a small provider here in Thunder Bay. We're lucky enough to have that spot. And I'm so scared of the day when that funding runs out, we lose our spot, and we go on the bottom of the wait list at that provider. And even if our name gets called, how are we going to get back into that provider? So I know we're not the only family in that spot, and I want all the families who are in that spot to know, I know what you're feeling right now.
Yeah.
So,
Angela, I'm going to
Yeah.
ask you another question, but before I do, I'm not seeing much happening in my feed, but I'm not great with my phone. So if anybody's looking at their phone and sees a good question, oh, now I'm starting to see questions,
Okay.
which is great. And as
While
I
you're looking
mentioned,
up, sorry, while you're looking up questions,
Yeah.
I was just going to mention something that I didn't say was part of the announcement, but was, and
okay,
that is a renewal of the one-time interim funding that was also announced, and the continuation of behavior plans for the children that have them. So that was also announced today, which I did not mention. I
so
just wanted to say that.
the legacy kids will keep going for how long? Do we know?
We don't know until they're rolled into this new OAP, whenever that will be.
And those who received interim funding will get a renewal. What,
We'll get a renewal.
when will that happen?
Well, it's a good question. The length of time was extended to 18 months as opposed to 12 months. So I'm not 100% sure if they can reconcile at 12 months or if they have to wait the full 18 months. Carrie, do you know the answer to that?
In terms of reconciling, no, I don't know the answer to that. The information that I did receive was that there were a few details that needed to be ironed out with respect to rolling into our two-time funding, I suppose.
That's right.
I like that.
The impression I got was that we would hear something soon with respect to further details about how it would work, but that it's coming.
Thank you.
Those of you watching, Carrie is one of the leaders of the working group working on the OAP, and she's been studying the OAP very hard for 2 years now, 3 years now, longer. She's a smart cookie, as
We
is
call her the boss.
We call her the boss, as
The
is
boss.
as is her spouse. Angela, question from Ashley. I want to know why they didn't roll over the millions of unspent dollars and why they can't roll it over into this year. Now, Angela discovered $174 million that were not spent last year. Where's that money?
Well,
What happened to it?
I didn't discover it. I certainly did warn them that they were going to underspend by roughly that amount long before it was announced. So the ministry has made a commitment to spend 1.2 billion over 2 fiscal years. So the past fiscal year, they definitely did underspend by 174 million, which is almost 1/3 of the program. It's sad. This year, I don't see how they are on track to spend 600 million plus the 174 outstanding. But the money is technically supposed to be rolling over. It's not like that money that they've said that money is gone and it can't be spent. The main concern is, what are they going to spend it on? We don't know.
Are there any positives to today's announcement that anybody wants to discuss?
Regulation of ABA therapy. That's good, right?
So some of the things that we worry about with the OAC is that we've been in fight mode for a long time. And it is sometimes hard to pull back our lens and go, okay, we got shocked really badly 2 years ago. The Ontario Autism Program was blown to smithereens. Now the government has made a commitment. It's taken much longer than they said it would. But what's good about this? We're seeing caps. We're seeing, but we're also not seeing age limits necessarily. What do you think? Like, is this all crap, or are we seeing progress? Or do we have a bargaining chip here?
I think we're seeing progress. It's definitely an improvement to the childhood budget scheme. So it's definitely on an upward trend as opposed to a downward trend. So that there's definitely a positive. They've announced that children 0 to 3 are going to receive between 10,900 and 65,000 yearly. that's welcome, especially for children with more profound needs to be able to access, $65,000. It certainly beats 20,000. The same goes for every other category above age 6. 15 to 18 is 31,000 is the max, 31,900. It certainly beats $5,000. Is it at the full point of being an equitable program? No, but it is inching towards being more equitable.
Okay, so are we saying that our linchpin is the care coordinator? We're firm that clinicians need to be the people who make the calls on levels of service. But is the rest of the announcement just smoke and mirrors, Scott, or is progress being made?
I mean, I echo what Angela says, that it is better than the childhood budget, but I mean, what are you comparing it to? The childhood budgets were terrible. So, in particular, I think there's probably a lot of concerned parents out there tonight, especially for kids with more severe needs. The upper limit that they've put, whether it's up to age 9 or above that, it's insufficient funding. That's a big thing. On the other hand, so the big thing is parents worry. They want to be able to plan, right? You want to be able to plan long term, but you also want to be able to know what's coming up. So I would say it is a good thing that the 2-time funding, as Carrie called it, was announced. Not putting details in there does cause concerns, though. If you are, if your child received the $20,000, it was based on, I believe, April 1st, their birth or their age on April 1st, 2020. They haven't said if that's the date which will continue to be used. So there's parents probably really worried tonight, like, hey, my kid is a $20,000 childhood budget kid. They say they're going to renew it, but God, they're 6 now. Are they now going to get 5 or 20? Like, these are the things which keep people up at night, because they worry about like the next sort of year and stuff like that. So I don't think the government has done a very good job today in really satisfying the worries that people have. And in fact, it's just created a lot more questions.
A lot more questions. We mentioned children with complex needs. Carrie, have any provisions been made for children with complex needs? And let me back up a little bit. What do we mean when we say complex needs? Can you give me some examples?
I have, my son would be, I'd say he would classify as a child with complex needs. He has a severe diagnosis. We've worked really hard, and he continues to work really hard, and we've had the benefit of being able to access true needs-based therapy through the Legacy program. So, my son Jack, he's getting exactly what he needs, which is not a huge amount of hours anymore, because he was able to access that early. So my big concern here is for the kids who, when Lisa MacLeod announced the childhood budget scheme, the kids that were already waiting for years. So my son just made it right under the wire under the old program in March of 2018. And since that time, he's been enjoying needs-based therapy and extensions as the months have gone on and the years have gone on. But it's those kids who were sitting at the top of the wait list when that happened, who were ready to move into those services, who then were put on hold for 2 years. So, yes, there are good things that happened today. And as Angela said, I think we're headed in the right direction, and there are things that we can work with here. But I think what's missed in this announcement today is that $65,000 cap for children that are young. Like, we would love to be able to access intensive services. So, 25 hours and up for the kids with those truly complex needs. And to say that they're just being cut off at the knees at that point where intensive therapy just isn't going to be available, I mean, that's fine for kids who maybe could have accessed early intervention, but not for the kids who have been sitting on a wait list for 5 years who never had that opportunity. So, I mean, that's one thing that I think the OAC is going to be focusing on and should be focusing on, is what's going to happen to those kids who are the lost generation, the ones who have only been handed $5,000 for the past couple of years. Like, they're not going to benefit in the same way from, you know, being able to access a program where they could get intensive therapy early and hit those developmental milestones early and given those opportunities. We can't forget about that section of kids who got screwed. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I echo Karen that the program is designed for kids who had access to early intervention, but the kids who have had nothing, that might be older, that are more profoundly affected by autism, they are the ones that are going to fall through the gaps with this program.
Mhm. Alina and Angela, this is a long one, and it's more of a statement or a story than a question, but I'm going to read this to you all and ask Alina and Angela for their thoughts. From Melissa, I'm just so frustrated. I live in Elliott Lake, and there are no services here really. We have workers from Thrive who help us, but speech and ABA are not to be found. They come from out of town. Due to COVID, no one was coming, so we don't even have that. I use some funds from respite, from family, basically. Not a lot of people here want to do respite in aspects of social skills and stuff. So I feel people are more like glorified babysitters because my son has autism. No one helping me is actually working on skills or are trained to. I heard Thrive is offering some services soon that people can use the funds for, but it isn't even in place yet. It's being talked about. Nothing suitable available in the North for services for our children. SSAH has been frozen for years. What a disappointment.
Yeah, I'll let Alina speak to the northern issue, but the bigger issue is also that this is a funding allotment program. It's a different amount, but it's a similar scheme to the McLeod scheme. Give parents the money, let them spend it. Obviously, the COVID provisions are not in place, so you can't buy things like trampolines. You can only access these therapy services. But and I'm going to use some other big words, hopefully they're understood. When McLeod made the announcement back in February 2019, the market destabilized. So what that meant was a lot of businesses started to either minimize or shut their door. A lot of especially younger people who worked in the field started to switch fields because it was too unpredictable. They needed a job that was more secure. So capacity for therapy had diminished considerably, and then the pandemic exacerbated it. So it became even worse. So now here's these parents with cash in hand who can't spend it anywhere. And that's happening now, even with the $5,000 and $20,000. So it doesn't make sense to me how this government thinks the market is just going to right itself as soon as parents have money in their hands. That does not make sense. And of course, in the North, it's that much worse. So I'll let Alina talk to about that.
Yeah, so that market destabilization is still happening right across Ontario, and not just in northern regions, but also in rural areas across the province and in remote areas further north. And it's exactly as Angela said, there's people with cash in hand and nowhere to spend it. They live too far away, or wait lists are already stacked up at the few providers we have. Now, one thing that is happening up north is there is a Northern Capacity Building Committee. There's one in each region that CCR has well, CCR was providing services in these
What
areas.
does,
But
and what does CCR stand for, Alina?
Child and Community Resources, they were the regional provider in 4 northern regions. So CCR had to pull back a lot of services during this time because of that market destabilization. And since then, CCR has put together these committees, one in each of the regions that they service, and they are working with a small amount of money to build capacity. Not a lot of capacity has been built through this because we realized very quickly on that wasn't a whole lot of money. Capacity takes considerable investment. When you're talking about training people from scratch and trying to get people to stay here once they're trained, and to travel to northern remote communities, that takes a lot of incentive. It takes years to build that capacity. So, I mean, to Elliott Lake person, get involved in your area. I know there's the Northern Ontario Autism Alliance out of Sudbury. Check out their webpage, get involved. Now is the time to get involved. Now is the time to push the government on this capacity building, because for core to work anywhere, we need therapists, we need clinicians, because they're the backbone of the program. And if we don't have those people, nothing's going to function. And that Northwestern Ontario in particular is a really good example of that. We're already at capacity and none of the other pillars have rolled out yet. So I don't know how core is going to start functioning here.
Kara, are you aware of any kinds of incentives being created to build capacity in rural and northern areas?
Am I aware?
Yeah.
No. Alina's again the person that needs to be asked the questions about the north. But yeah, what Alina mentioned.
Yeah, the Northern Capacity Building Advisory Committees. They're doing work. They're talking to providers to see what do you need? What do you need dollars wise? Where do you need to invest it? Let us know. We're going to sit down and try and figure something out so they can at least, and especially during COVID, they were, throwing a curveball with COVID, trying to keep their doors open, try and level the playing field for providers so they can all stay open and all build up. That's been really important. We've been working on that during COVID in the northern areas that are severely underserviced.
Tony, Tiffany asks, what about children who are currently in crisis and not able to live functional lives right now? What immediate supports are available for those needing it, if any?
I mean, it depends on your area, but it's very hard to access any services. I'm in a family, we're living in crisis and we have full-time therapy. We're legacy families, but to get extra help, I don't know. It's like, I'd say reach out to your local, like we have community living here in Durham. I really don't know exactly how to get extra help when there's so many doors closed on us. Mm-hmm. That's why we're here. We're in crisis. There's 40,000 kids that are waiting on a wait list, and we're begging the government for help, and they're just giving us crumbs a little bit at a time. So Tiffany, we're always here for you to talk. Whatever you need, we can try and help you. As far as how receptive your MPP is. So keep bugging him. And that's all I really can say.
The one thing I would like to mention is one of the pillars of the OAP is the urgent response. We don't know what that's going to look like, but and sadly, I don't know when it will be available to access, but that is the mechanism that should be used for families that are in crisis. And I also want to address something that Scott said earlier, talking about, the cutoffs and that it's not nearly enough money for the intensity that some children require. And I fully agree. One of the things that we're hoping is that we can use this urgent response program to top up for those children that need more than the maximum amount and the cap How that's going to work, I don't know, but I can guarantee you that the OAC will advocate to make sure that it is accessible and that families in crisis and families that need more than what the OAP caps provide is accessible and provided to those families.
There's one thing that, like, about all the components that we saw today. Yesterday, we didn't have anything on paper. So we had nothing to go by. We didn't know what to ask. Like, so if one thing I can take away from today, even though I don't think it's what we need and we have a lot of work to do, there's something to work with. And now we can ask the questions. When will the urgent happen? When are core services actually going to roll out? And what is that going to entail? And service caps and duration caps. And leave it up to these very, very smart people. They're going to dissect it, and we're going to try and get this right.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing to add, Tony, that after 2 years of requesting some kind of information from the provincial government and not getting it, this is the first time we actually have something to talk about and look at.
The last time we heard from Minister Smith was last August. So there's a reason we're all feeling eager and anxious, because it's been so long that we've heard anything. So any bit of news is going to have the community on edge.
And trust me, I wanted to, when I saw it, I wanted to rip everything apart and I was angry. But then I stopped and I thought about it. And like I said, we had $5,000 and $20,000 options. And there was no hope, and it didn't look like anything was ever going to change. So in any type of negotiation or bargaining, there's always going to be things you don't like. But I think we've come a long way. We're nowhere near where I'd like to see it, but we're going to get there.
We are almost at the 1 hour mark. We've got 8 minutes before we wind down and stop. We want to stop at 60 minutes. I haven't gotten to everyone's questions. I apologize, but I hope that I've touched on all of the topics that have been brought up. Angela, we have a very strong new team at the OAC.
Yes, we do.
So-
Welcome, Scott, to the board as of this year. Welcome to Alina on the executive, and welcome back to Carrie and Tony. All brilliant people here.
Tell us more about our plans in the next few months, what your plans are. And I would just off the top of your head. Well, let me put it this way. Let me go around to all of you because I didn't allow you to introduce yourselves. I have a very unique vantage point in being the outreach person at the OAC, in that I get to know everybody. That's my job. My job is to get to know everybody on the team on a personal level. I know each of your stories a little bit, and I know about your skill set, which is phenomenal. We have accountants, economists, therapists, activists, electricians, epidemiologists, ophthalmologists, you name it. We have, yeah, and goofball ex-comedian types who work at the OAC and within the OAC. We have a very strong board, but we also have a big circle of supporters and workers who research, who debate, who discuss, who talk to media. This is a big team, guys. Tony, you're in Durham. You're wearing your Durham crew hat. Tell me about the Durham crew.
The Durham crew is an amazing group of people that I wish I never met, but I did. So they're my best friends. After that Lisa McLeod announcement, we kind of all gathered at Lauren Coe's office on a windy day. And from there on out, we've been causing a ruckus. And we're not going to stop, because that's just in our nature. So I just want to shout out to every single one of you Durham crew. I love you, and thank you for being my support over the last 2 years.
Those black t-shirts that you might see on our Facebook page, needs-based therapy, that stems from the Durham crew, and they go as a pack everywhere. It's astounding.
And
Look
we
for
don't,
photographs. How many? 20, 30
oh,
stalwarts? More?
oh, yeah, there's lots of us,
Yeah.
at least 30. And we're family.
Scott, you're from Ottawa, and you're a political scientist by training. You've joined our board. You're our newest member of the OAC board. Tell me about your background in politics.
Oh, well, my background in politics kind of ended after I finished university, and I ended up going into. I've been in computer science ever since, but I'm still very passionate about following politics. I think when it comes to politics and autism, I got really engaged back when Autism Doesn't End at 5 campaign was happening. That's when the Wynne government tried to stop therapy for anyone over the age of 5. And that's when I met Bruce and Laura, who are very politically savvy and very effective in getting our message across and affecting change in the government. So, you know, my involvement in the OAC, I mean, I really, it's those ties to Bruce and Laura and what the road that they've paved for us. And I'm just happy to be on board and continue the fight.
Yep. Kudos to Bruce and Laura. No one was more surprised than me that a couple of red Tories could teach a pinko commie like myself so much. Carrie, tell us about yourself and all the work you do in Ottawa.
Oh, okay. Well, to be honest, the past, year or so, there's been this thing like COVID-19 that's it's kind of put like a damper on a lot of things lately. But here in Ottawa, I got together with another mom named Kate Logue, who's a power advocate, and we run a little page called what do we even call it? Autism Ottawa United.
Yep.
And Kate and I started to do, some chats with people. And the thing that I love so much is being able to reach people and to empower people and to encourage people and to inform people so that they can take control a little bit of their own situation. That was one of the things that I learned from Bruce and Laura from, really early on. Like, I can do something and I can't just sit back and do nothing. Like, I'd encourage, everyone watching and all the families in the OAC that, you don't have to just sit back. There are little things that you can do to help. And, it could be big if you have the time to do it, or it could just be little things. We say, we do it, we can when we can. And this is what I love to do, is to reach people and to empower them and to let them know that they can be an advocate too. So do it now. Join us now. It's going to be good. We're going to do this.
Alina, what the hell is an epidemiologist?
Well, all of a sudden everybody knows, right? I like to bill myself as
pandemic now, so
Code word for nerd.
code word for nerd. Yeah. So my background is in infectious disease epidemiology. I did some training at the National Microbiology Laboratory in Winnipeg back in the day, and I was looking forward to a really bright, exciting career. And now I'm probably the only unemployed infectious disease epidemiologist on the face of the planet.
And you're unemployed because, yeah?
Because I'm a caregiver. I'm caregiving for 4 people right now. And there's no one who will pay me enough to cover those caregiving needs. So here I am trying to participate in some peripheral research projects from colleagues of mine who throw me a bone once in a while. And I spend much of my time advocating with Northern Autism Families, which is based in Northwestern Ontario. Shout out to our leadership team, Adriana Atkins, Krista Smith, and Danielle Pananen, and our wonderful our mentor, Sharon Back at Thunder Bay Family Network. She really helped coalesce us, and she's been guiding us and teaching us how to be advocates and activists. So we all of us have children that are around the same age and present very similarly, and we were getting angry at the lack of attention being given to Northwestern Ontario. So we teamed up and we started yelling, and the Ontario Autism Coalition and Northern Ontario Autism Alliance noticed us and brought us on board. And now I kind of like to think that we are all connected and we have advocacy roots kind of tendriling all over the province now. We're connected to so many people, and it's so wonderful for Northern voices to actually be here, share the stage with everyone. A lot of people in North feel like they've been left behind for good reason. A lot of policy leaves our communities behind. But all of a sudden now in the advocacy world, we have a voice and people know we're here and people are learning about Northern issues. And we're so excited about that, you guys. So if you're in Northwestern Ontario, contact Northern Autism Families Matter. We have a Facebook page. And if you're Northeastern Ontario, contact Northern Ontario Autism Alliance. The people there are awesome too. And it's like Carrie said, even little things matter. All the little things add up. If we have 11,500 people all doing something little, it becomes one gigantic thing. So stay tuned to the OAC page and you know, participate in the Twitter storms, write to your MPPs, you know, Carrie?
Sorry. I know, Karen, we promised we wouldn't interrupt, but I'm looking at the thread of people chatting here, and
Yes,
Rhonda
yes.
here in Ottawa is reminding us that this Saturday is the anniversary of Lisa McLeod's horrible, egregious, terrible childhood budget plan, and she's hosting a virtual protest on Twitter, so like a Twitter storm. So this is this Saturday, February 6th at 11 o'clock in the morning. So if you have a Twitter account, join us on Saturday. And if you don't have one, get one. Sorry,
Get one.
Alina.
That's okay. I'm done.
You
That's
carry
me.
on.
Thank you.
Angela, final words.
I was just
Angela.
going to say, Alina, thank
Yeah.
you for saying that, that we all need to work together, because it actually segues very nicely into one of my goals, and that is to unite us as a community. We all need to work together. We all need to advocate together, you know, with a common mind and a single voice, because that's the best way to affect change. And big picture, ultimate goal is to turn Ontario Autism Coalition into a social group where we no longer have to fight for services for our children. Because why on God's given earth would anybody think that necessary treatment for their child requires a battle? And that's big picture, ultimate goal. The other thing I wanted to mention, Alina, thank you for bringing up, and if you haven't read Janet McLaughlin's report, I suggest you do. And that is unfortunately, usually moms, sorry, Tony and Scott, either they have to drastically reduce their work hours or cannot continue working at all. And that is something that is egregious. And that is another reason we need to continue fighting so that our children are supported, so we can all get back out into the workforce and we can continue to provide for our children. And that's it. And, you know, one of the things I often said, because Janet McLaughlin's report talked about the statistics about the lack of support for moms in particular. I say that I used to be a statistician, but now I'm a statistic. And that is exactly, unfortunately, where a lot of us lie, trying to provide for our children. And you know what, let's leave this on a positive note. We are going to affect change. Our board is brilliant. We all complement each other so well. We all have different skills and they work well together. And I'm so looking forward to this year working with everybody and bringing this program to its knees.
Okay, so final word. Get involved. Twitter, write letters, contact your MPP. We will have resources for families shortly. We actually had an MPP kit all ready to go, but now we have to make a few adjustments. So give us a little time. So, and as soon as that is done, we'll send it out to families. we can't predict the future, can we? We can't predict the
Well,
future.
We
but we've
can
got a
try
team.
and alter it though.
That's right. We've
Yeah.
got the team. Yeah, Angela, we've got the team.
We have got the team, and we are adding maybe a couple more team members. So the bigger,
So,
the better, the more the
Moms,
merrier.
moms, dads, if you're crying in your wine tonight, in your coffee tomorrow morning, know that every single one of these people that you are looking at have all cried through the night. We've all had lived this struggle. We're just regular people and we're not going anywhere. So no matter how frightened you feel, no matter how hopeless it may look, the OEC is not going anywhere. That's something we can promise because we're not politicians.
No.
We're moms and dads mostly, and self-advocates, and some therapists and friends. Yeah? Angela, thank you for your leadership. We're
Thank
so happy to have you as our boss. And everybody go to bed. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Good night.
Good
Until
night,
next
everybody.
time.
Thank
Until
you.
next time.
Good night.
Bye.
Fight,
Bye.
fight, 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 fight.
Fight, fight, fight.
Yes. Good night. Good night.
Bye.
Night.